So when I'm thinking about bluffing or semi-bluffing a player, the stats I'm checking are the steal stats. So if we think about when we're calling out the blinds, which is where most check raises are going to take place when we call out the blinds, I'm checking their depending, whatever their positional stat is, mid position, cutoff button, and seeing how wide that they're raising. And that tells me how their hand range fits into the board texture. And that tells me what hands I think I can check raise profitably. I'm also looking at the fold to raise stat or fold to check raise, depending on what program you use. And that's really important because some people just definitely play fit or fold, and some people will fight back with a greater consistency. So, that's something that you definitely want to pay attention to. Pretty straightforward stat. And then in terms of setting up barrels, I'm always thinking about when I have a hand, like what cards I'm going to continue on, assuming that I don't hit, like if I have a semi-bluff. So if I have Queen Jack, if I defend Queen Jack and the flat comes 10-8x, and they see bet and I check raise and they call, I'm thinking, what cards am I going to continue on? So in that specific example, it might be like a Queen, a Jack, a 9, a King, and even like an Ace, just because it looks, against certain players, they're like, well, it's so obvious that he's betting the Ace that it can't be obvious, so I'm just going to fold, that type of thing. Or if I have like a backdoor flush draw, so say a Queen Jack of clubs, there's one club on the flop, I'm thinking, okay, all those hands I just mentioned, then any club, that type of thing. And then targeting mass tablers, I think the check raise is very effective. If you know a guy is going for Supernova Elite and he's playing 20, 30 tables all the time, he's just going to be auto betting a lot of times on certain boards. And even if they do have a marginal hand that they think you're taking advantage of them with, they might just give up a lot easier than some other players, people who are playing 2 tables at a time. Now, in terms of bluffing and semi-bluffing, and who I wouldn't want to target would be basically either regs who just never fold or fish in general. Just because, when a flop comes 10, 9, 8, and we have like ace deuce, and there's 2 clubs on the board, ace deuce of clubs, like a lot of times I'll take a more passive line with those just because I feel like my fold equity is considerably less on the flop. Basically, when you're trying to think of who not to target, it should be just people who don't fold much. That's pretty straightforward. So, in terms of the textures we should be looking at, obviously, again, this varies on your player profile, but just to give you a general idea of things I'm looking for, cards with 1 high card, 2 low cards, so Queen 6-5, Jack 4-5, and that type of thing. Ace high boards, I think, are kind of an underrated board to check raise, just because a lot of times people have like a massively polarized range where, say, I'm like Ace Jack 2, they're going to be c-betting all their air, their ace highs, and then like nothing else. So when they have like Queen Jack, they're going to be checking back every time. So when they do bet, it really polarizes their range, and then I think we can take advantage of that. And like I mentioned before, boards we can look to double and triple barrel. So hands that have a lot of backdoor equity. Hands that, like that Queen Jack example, that have a lot of cards, different cards that we can continue on. And, one of the stats that I mentioned before are villains with high c-bet percentages are great people to target, because if somebody is c-betting like over, I would say like 60% is kind of standard in Sit and Goes, then that basically means they're going to just have a ton of hands that are too weak in their range to continue with.